Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. Jacqueline. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. Jacqueline at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV, and hello to our friends listening on Business Talk Radio. I am Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, and our show today is Talking Heads. And if you're joining us for the first time, this show is a platform where leaders and experts come from around the world to share a 30-minute lesson to help make us better personally or professionally. Joining me today is my co-host. He's actually the voice of USA Global TV. You'll recognize it right away. And he is, as I mentioned before, a talking head and an elevated listener. He also is an entrepreneur. He is a TV show host himself on RVN television. He's a producer and so much more. Let's bring him on. Hello, Mr. Cini.
Hello, Dr. Jacqueline. It's so good to be here with you today, and I really appreciate this opportunity on Talking Heads.
I'm excited. This is your first Talking Heads episode, which is great. And you have so much knowledge and content to share, Al. And you are an entrepreneur yourself, a business owner. So before we begin, I just want to spotlight you and just have you share about the work that you do as an entrepreneur.
Thanks, Doc. I'm the managing partner, one of the managing partners of an organization called BCAT Partners. BCAT stands for Brand and Culture Alignment Toolkit, which is some instruments and some methods that, when they're followed, empower people by connecting them with their purpose. And it all comes from some research we've been doing over what really motivates and energizes a team. I like to tell people I'm really not a motivational speaker. You'll get a pretty good sense of that today. But I am a speaker on human motivation. And today, when we talk about the fusion of organizations' HR departments and their marketing departments, when we talk about how those really are the same department, just looked at from two different angles, I think you'll begin to see some of the wisdom in our approach, and also some of the applicability to what you do in your business, in your job, in your career. So thanks, Dr. Jacqueline. I'm looking forward to this.
I'm looking forward to it as well. And so for folks who have been watching Talking Heads, this episode is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to stay here on screen. I'm going to engage and interact with Al, and we're going to have fun.
Yeah, that's the point.
Absolutely.
Great.
All right. So what are we going to be talking about today, Al?
Well, the advertised headline for today's topic is the fusion of HR and marketing, and what brand and culture alignment means. So I'm going to be doing a series of Talking Heads presentations, and maybe as we go through them in the future, we'll get down into more detail about how actually to use some of the techniques I'm going to be outlining today. But I want to start today by talking about the value of connection with purpose, and how a purposeful organization is a more successful organization. And it all starts with brand and culture alignment. So if we're ready, I'll just roll right into it. By our definition, brand is behavior. So when you see somebody do something, and then you see them do it again, or maybe even again and again, eventually that becomes how they're known. You know somebody based on the way they interact with others, the way they interact with you, based on what you observe in the way they dress, what you observe in the way they speak, what it is you read from them when they send you an email. And these are how people become known to each other. We usually don't explain to each other what we are. What we usually do is show each other what we are. And that is brand. The essence of brand, more than just a logo, the essence of brand is behavior. And when an organization's brand is aligned with its purpose, remember, brand is behavior, then that organization and all of its members exhibit certain shared patterns of behavior that are signature patterns of behavior that identify them as members of that group or team. So who we are as members of an organization are just like who we are as individuals, ways of expressing our brand so that other people know who we are, not just who I am or who you are. That turns out to be a very important question to get an answer to, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So that's brand. Culture is what motivates us to behave that way. So the things that we're proud of, the things that we're skilled at, the things that we believe we might do a little better than anybody else does, the things that we like to engage in because engaging in them because we love it. And that love, we don't use that enough in business. I think we need to use it more. When you love to do something, you'll tend to do it a lot or tend to do it often and over. That love is culture. It's what motivates you. And in an organization, culture is the shared love, the love that everybody feels for the shared work, the brand that the team or the organization does. Now, you've seen plenty of examples of this, although you may not be all that conscious of them. Several years ago, Apple Computer, which is widely respected as an organization that has its act together and is connected to its purpose, Apple Computer ran a series of ads to try to distinguish themselves from Microsoft. And those ads were really simple. I'm a Mac and I'm a PC. And they created two personas. The PC guy was an actor, a comedic actor who wore a suit, had a pocket protector, wore glasses, was very focused on the computer. The computer was the object for that person. And the person next to him, the Mac, was a younger guy dressed in a pullover shirt, the way Steve Jobs used to dress, looking kind of casual, being very self-assured. Very confident, very calm, definitely in control of his life. There was no better way for Apple to explain to the world how they saw themselves as being different from Microsoft than by showing those two people side by side. And what we learned from that, without them having to teach us, what we learned just by observing them, and that's very important, keep that in mind. What we learned just by observing them is that when you buy a Macintosh, you become a cool, self-assured, younger thinking, more independent, better version of yourself. On the other hand, when you buy a Windows PC from Microsoft, or when you buy the software from Microsoft and put it on a PC, you become a kind of an edgy, nervous, insecure, totally focused on your computer, spending all your time on your computer and never really using it for anything, kind of a, for want of a better word, nerd. So watching that ad, you get to pick which role model best represents your perception of your better self, what you want to be. And based on that unconscious choice, and remember, all this stuff is happening inside your brain, almost at an emotional level, you end up wanting to go to an Apple store and buy a Macintosh rather than buying a PC. You get the inclination that you'd like to be different, and you believe that the Macintosh will help you achieve the difference that you seek. So how does that relate to HR and marketing being the same department? And the answer is really simple. In our research, and we need to understand this now more than ever, we're in the middle of this thing that's called the Great Resignation, where people are wondering about their place in society and whether their work has any relevance or meaning. And as a result of that, many of them are skipping going back to work and finding other things to do and quitting in droves. COVID didn't cause this, ladies and gentlemen. COVID revealed it. And we talk about this on the business show with Dr. Jacqueline pretty much every week. The pandemic shined a light on something that's been lacking in people's souls for decades. For decades, people have wondered if what they do for a living is worth living to do. People have been wondering that for decades. And what COVID has done is awaken them to that question and maybe make them a little bit uncomfortable with the fact that they don't have an answer for that. So here's what we found in our research. The reason why people go to work for you is the same reason why people want to buy from you. People want to come to work for you, or they want to buy something from you because they believe that if they make that choice, they will become better versions of themselves. And that better version of self is what brand and culture alignment is really all about. So where does that come from? Where does that go? What we believe and what we've seen in our research, and we've done about 11,000 BCAT surveys in the 8 years that we've been delivering this service. What we learn over and over and over again is that at the center of every really truly aligned, highly functional, very successful organization, there is a role model that represents that organization's best self living its best day at work. So whether you're part of a company or a whole company, whatever you are, whatever that we, collective we is, whatever we call that the scope of the BCAT project, whatever that collective we is, that is, there is a role model that represents everybody who is associated with that when they're doing their best work on their best day. And that role model, and we, in fact, in our process, we actually call that a role target. That role model is what we all seek to become more like. It's what we admire and what we try to become more like. And so what I want to do in this episode, in this first Talking Heads presentation, is to talk a little bit about that role model and what that means, and also what it's shaped like, what it looks like. So we'll spend a little bit of time on that today. And then maybe in future episodes, we'll talk about the process of revealing that role model. I'll try to get into that a little bit today too. Okay, so the role model that represents an organization's best self living its best day at work, that role target that represents what everybody aspires to be, consists of 4 components, 4 elements to that role target. I'll tell you in a little bit how I learned this. Actually, I used to work for NBC Universal, and there's a story behind that. Those 4 components, if you can think about it, are really 4 kind of personas that we mix and match to create our own personalities. So try to think of it this way. Persona number 1, if you've ever seen the program Seinfeld, persona number 1 is George, blue. That is kind of an edgy, tech-oriented, detail-oriented person. The blue color represents a value system based on precision and a brand that we normally identify as an expert. The architect, Vandelay, he used to make these things up all the time and pretend that he was different super characters who knew their stuff. That's the first of the 4 role targets, the 4 components of a role target, that precision role target. The second is Elaine on Seinfeld. That's the person who decides where the team is going to have dinner, what time they're going to eat, where they're going on Friday, what they're doing for the weekend. So now we have 2 personalities. The George personality is the edgy, detail-oriented, nervous character that's always lost in the details. The Elaine character, the resolve character, the person we normally associate with a behavior pattern called driver. That person is always pushing to get to the point, always pushing to make a decision and make a choice. That's Elaine. The third role model component is the harmony role model component. These are people whose value systems are based on empathy with others, getting along well with other people, and also following the rules, being mindful of tradition, and being consistent and steady in what they do. That's Jerry. Jerry is the essential straight man in the whole entourage of the characters on that program. And the color we use to represent that is the green color. And then finally, and everybody remembers this character, even if you didn't watch the show much, you'll remember the crazy character. That was Cosmo, Kramer. Kramer was the guy that you never knew what was going to come out of his mouth next. Totally unpredictable. The color we use to represent that is yellow. Now, if you've ever heard the expression, boy, those people really drank the Kool-Aid, what we like to think with BCAT is that we can tell you, based on the work we do, what flavors of Kool-Aid, what mix of the 4 flavors of Kool-Aid are in your company's water cooler or in your organization's water cooler. When you drink the blue Kool-Aid, you become deliberate, methodical, maybe a little withdrawn, highly analytical, highly scientific. Drinking the blue Kool-Aid makes you want to use Microsoft Excel, create a spreadsheet, do your math homework. That's blue. When you drink the red Kool-Aid, you want to check your email, set your calendar, make sure you know where you're going tomorrow, make sure you know where you're going next week, make sure that all your appointments are entered properly. That's the resolve value system. That's the driver. And that's the person who works on a schedule. You become maybe a little bit more perfunctory, more immediate. I'm trying to use all the good words here. And you become focused on dates. It's got to be done by 5 o'clock today. It's got to be done by Friday. That kind of thing becomes a very important part of who you are. That's the red Kool-Aid. When you drink the green Kool-Aid, you calm down. You look at the people around you. You try to understand them. You try to relate to them in a way that will make them comfortable and not just you. Try to empathize with them. Also, you look at the clock. Are you in work on time? Are you staying until you're supposed to go home? Are you taking just an hour for lunch? When you drink the green Kool-Aid, you become very tuned in with the other people around you. You become very tuned in with the rules of the road. You believe that rules were made to be followed. And when you drink the yellow Kool-Aid, you look for a lamp, take the lampshade off and put it on your head. You change the subject. You move from one subject to another. You are often referred to as somebody with ADHD. And you can also be very spontaneous and witty. Now, every organization consists of an ordered mix of all four of those behavioral styles. In some organizations, there's a little bit more green. In other organizations, there's a little bit more red. Within a company, there could be some departments that are more yellow or more blue, depending on their mission. But those four components are really the only four components that identify a role target. And that role target becomes the target of behavior that everybody in the organization tries to emulate. Now, what we've found is that that's a great way to express purpose. We want to be connected with our purpose, but what most people do, especially in an HR department, I think, when we want to be connected with purpose, the way we'll do that is by trying to write a mission statement that we believe cognitively defines what the company does. But the people in your company are not interested in that. They're not necessarily interested in what the executive leadership team believes we ought to be doing. They're much more interested in what we, including the executive leadership team, are doing together to change the world, to make it a better place in which to live. And when you articulate that purpose as a person rather than as a written statement, mission statement, people get to know it, they get to relate to it, they get to learn from it, and as a result, they change their own behavior. Not so much about managing, it's more about leading now. And whether you own the company or within the company, you mop the floors and answer the phones. At whatever level in the company at which you operate, that sense of purpose personified by your organization's role target becomes the North Star that answers the question, in any particular situation, what should I do? How is it that I would handle this person with a problem? How is it that I would handle this physical situation here? What is it that's expected of me? When people really get to know that because they personified it, sometimes with some of the clients we work with, we kind of describe it as answering the question, what would Jesus do? Except, that's a pretty common phrase, kind of like the Kool-Aid phrase, but it's not Jesus. It's the thing that we all aspire to be more like. It's the movement hidden within our organization that gives our lives meaning, that gives our work a sense of purpose that makes us feel like we all belong here. So if you all understand those four behavioral characteristics, those four colors that represent the North Star that ultimately determines the direction we want to move in, what I can do now is maybe explain where those four colors came from. And we're getting back to motivation. Part of the work I did when I was at NBC was with audience research. And because I have a background in social psych and because I was more of a technology person at NBC, but they'd move me around from project to project based on what they knew I was able to do. And one of the projects I ended up involved with was reducing data from audience research and also helping design focus groups for audience research. And this was during a time that many of you, if you're maybe a little older, you might remember a phrase, must-see TV, which was the catchphrase that NBC used when they were on the air in the 90s. The whole point of must-see TV was, how do we get 15 or 20 million people between the ages of 18 and 45 to make time during their schedules on a Thursday night to sit down separately or together in groups in front of a television set and watch a program at 9 p.m. Well, at the time, NBC was better at it than any of the other networks. We were really, really, really good at it. We were essentially in the ratings unbeatable. And what made us even especially more interesting in the industry is that where other networks might have to produce 100 pilots in order to get one hit, at NBC we were able to produce just 10 pilots in order to get one hit. And that's because we had a formula for it. So having been, well, there are two reasons why I can tell you that now. One is my non-disclosure agreement finally expired. It was pretty stringent, but I'm no longer bound by it. The second is everybody knows it now because just by watching television, you could figure it out. It took them a long time, but it wasn't until really the 2010s that other networks seemed to have caught on to what we knew in 94, 95. In order for a television program to gain an audience, to be successful, by the second commercial break, a viewer needs to meet 4 characters. Sound familiar? The first character they need to meet is analytical, scientific, detail-oriented, measure twice, cut once. That is the blue precision expert character. If you've ever watched a police drama or a program, let's say like NCIS, there is somebody, happens at the moment that that character is a woman. There's a woman who works in the back room on a computer doing very technical things and coming up with the amazing information that everybody else on their team needs in order to be able to do their jobs. That person in the back room is archetypically blue. That's the expert. So you need to meet that person. You also need to meet the person with relatively few lines that everybody else looks to for guidance or direction. And that's not McGee, it's Jethro, the head of the unit of NCIS. That's the red character. That character doesn't have to say much because just by the way they carry themselves, everybody knows this is the boss and this is the person you need to look to whenever you're confused about what you're supposed to do next. That's the red character. You also need to meet the character who is McGee, the character who gathers the gathers the evidence, follows the procedures, bags everything properly, labels everything properly, shows up very promptly at the crime scene, processes the crime scene very carefully and methodically, bags everything, and then comes back with all that evidence. That's the green character. That's, again, that's harmony, not just harmony with others, but also harmony with process and with methods. The steady character. And also you need to meet somebody who might be a little unpredictable. I mean, not like Kramer. Remember, this is a police drama. But somebody who's maybe a little funny, spontaneous. Somebody that the other characters joke around with. The person that you can count on to change the mood every now and then when it needs to be changed. So those 4 characters are the secret to making a successful commercial television program. And now that I've told you that, if you do watch television, and this is true even on Netflix, not just on broadcast TV, but on streaming video too. If you do watch television programs with characters in them, you're going to start looking for these characters. You can't help yourself. They're there if the program draws and holds an audience, because those characters, by the way, my work there was, I was the kind of guy who would ask why. Why does that work? And, once they figured out that they can save millions of dollars by producing pilots following this formula, they really didn't care all that much about why. I did, but they didn't. So I asked why, and they said, well, why do we need to know? And I said, well, I think it's important for us to understand the dynamics of this. I was curious myself. So I got them to spring for some money to run a few focus groups, and we did a little bit of a deeper dive in this, and here's what we found. The conventional wisdom is that the character you fall in love with on a television program is the character that's most like you. But in fact, based on our research, the character that you fall in love with is the character that's least like you. Just as in real life, on television, opposites attract. And as we do in real life, we're always looking for people to connect with who have things that we don't, or that approach things in ways that are different from us. And while our first impressions of each other might be a little negative, when we actually get to know that person who's different from us, that bond can be a very strong bond, because together, the two of you, that connection between those two people is much more adaptable, much more flexible, better able to deal with the things that happen in life. So what we found in our research is that the character that you bond with on that television program, it's actually the person that's opposite from you. So if you're a Kramer type in real life, a funny person, you'll tend to gravitate more toward the analytical scientist type, because it's totally different from you. And if you're Jerry, a steady, consistent, reliable, methodical, harmony-oriented person, you'll tend to gravitate more toward the Elaine, the kind of more inflammable, incendiary, to the point, let's focus on this, let's get this done kind of a person. So that whole idea that role targets are what happen inside of a company that make that company effective is the core of the Brand and Culture Alignment Toolkit. In future episodes of Talking Heads, when what I'll be doing is explaining how you can tease that role target out of your team, present it back to everybody so that you could use it as kind of an avatar that everybody could learn from. And as a result of it, I can tell you from our own experience, and we've done a lot of these, When you get everybody aligned with the role model that represents all of us collectively, everybody at every level in the company becomes twice as engaged. And there's a way to measure that. I'll explain in a later episode. At least twice as engaged, often quite a bit more than that, at least twice as engaged in their work as they were without this. So if you're the kind of manager or leader who believes, well, I pay my people and that should be enough, what else do they need from me? If that's what you think, then this is probably the last one of my talking heads you should watch. But if you're really looking for a series of interventions that actually change the way people perceive you and your company so that they feel like you are leading them in a meaningful, positive direction, it's the direction they fall in love with. We've learned that people really don't follow people. People follow what people follow. If you want to create that sense of followership in your company, well, we have a technique for that. It's based on those role targets. And next time we get together, I'll begin to walk you through the process of determining that. So, Dr. Jacqueline, thank you. And I didn't think I could talk for 30 solid minutes without a break.
I knew you could do it. I have pages and pages of notes here. That was really fascinating. I especially loved how you talked about those 4 characters. I'm a big Seinfeld fan, so I could relate to that immediately. And then how you shared that in the shows that we watch, these same personas are there. And I'm going to actually go through the TV shows and just say,
next time we get together, tell me a few that you've recognized. I mean, it's in everything about the movie The Godfather is explained by those 4 characters. And I can tell you, Coppola, when he was cutting the movie up, it's very interesting because you would normally think that Don Corleone is a red character, because he's the head of a crime family. Mm-hmm. But if you really watch that film and the way it was cut up, he's very green. It's very family oriented. It trusts everybody, works with everybody, doesn't overlook any. He's firm and he's let's say 2 scoops green, 1 scoop red. Okay. And it's that family nature, I think, that really defines him as a character.
I think you're right. And also, I've been told that the genre that is the most watched is crime. That people are intrigued by crime because most people would be the opposite of how they live their lives, who they are, right?
True. I mean, when you think about it, that's another example of opposites attract. I mean, sitcoms about families, I think, used to be really popular, and they still are. But I think crime dramas are the big draws these days, especially on broadcast television, and it's because we can all relate to it, but we don't experience it every day. So yeah, it's a drift into a whole different world for us, for most of us.
And something else that I thought was also interesting, I mean, the whole thing was really fascinating. I wrote here about brand is behavior. And so many people think brand is that little logo that you have, or it's your website. And that's not the case.
The logo is a shorthand for that behavior. When you see the logo, you picture the behavior behind that logo. So and by the way, that's mostly almost like muscle memory. It's not even like you now consciously understand the mission statement of Apple Computer. When you see the Apple Computer logo, the feelings associated with the Apple products, which is what we're really talking about here, not what I know, it's what I feel. Those feelings are all wrapped up in that logo, and they all immediately come out when you see that picture.
I'm an Apple user. I have all Apple products and I absolutely love it. And I remember that commercial so well.
Mac and PC.
Yeah, and it makes sense. So I just want to tell you did an outstanding job. I will be recapping all of this and sharing it with the listening community that I have as well, so that anyone who's not watching, that they can see it on the YouTube channel, they can see it on our website, and they can also hear from me. So thank you for that. Brilliant.
I really appreciate the opportunity, Dr. Shannon. Thank you.
All right. Well, we see you back here next week.
Yes. Well, certainly for the business show, and maybe, I don't know, do we want to make this a regular thing with Talking Heads?
Yeah, I think if you have the time, I think our audience would love it.
I'm up for it. Let's do it again.
All right, let's do it again.
Great.
All right, Al, I'm going to spotlight you again. And if you can share with people, how can they reach out to you and who can reach out to you about what? Because we just had the Advocate show as well. You might want to talk a little bit about that.
We could. I mean, there are 2 things I'm doing these days that I'm really proud of and that make me really happy, that kind of speak to who I am, I think. And one of them is, as Dr. Jacqueline mentioned, a program on rvntelevision.com called The Advocates. We record and stream out every Wednesday at 10 a.m. The program is really about people who do good things on behalf of other people. So, and it could be for profit or not for profit. The important thing is to spotlight people who feel as though their work makes a difference in the world, that is of positive benefit to maybe one person or maybe others, maybe even a cause. So we interview those people every week, and a great opportunity for me to meet really wonderful people who actually do make a difference. So I'm very grateful for that. And also, I'm a managing partner at the Brand and Culture Alignment Toolkit. And you could reach me if you're thinking about offering a team building experience or pulling everybody together to do to have a group meeting. I mean, if you're not sure what to talk about at your next Zoom meeting, Brand and Culture Alignment, getting people connected with their purpose is what we do. And it can fit into a very small window, even a Zoom meeting. And if you want to know more about that, you can go to our website. That's at getbcat.com, or you can email me at al.cini@getbcat.com. I'll look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Al, and congratulations on a fabulous first episode.
Thank you, Doc. I appreciate that. And by the way, 83 was 83 today. Was that the
83 business episodes so far? Yes.
That is a fabulous journey for me, and I don't want to. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that we'd love to have you join us for the Business Talk Show on USA Global TV every Wednesday at 2 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time.
Yes, definitely. And Al, before you go, I just want to share one thing, because I think this is really relevant, and we're not going to give the information or make specifics. But on this platform, people who book, on USA Global TV, they have to be like-minded in terms of sharing stories to lift up other people, being advocates. And there have been times when a person maybe wanted to come onto this platform and it wasn't a great fit, because that's the branding that we have here at USA Global TV. You and I have discussed that. So it really permeates everything we do and who we are.
And that also brings up the subject of the book you just wrote, or that you're just finishing now, Adversity to Awesome, because those are the stories that really move us. Those stories of people overcoming things, those stories of people who have managed to live full and complete lives, even in the face of imperfection or adversity. I think those are all, and that, I mean, if we noodle a new tagline for USA Global TV, I think living a life of meaning, living a life of purpose is really what everything I think you do is about, Dr. Jacqueline. And I know all the best stories you've had to share with people have been stories of exactly that. So good work.
Well, thank you, Al. I appreciate it. And you've been a great mentor and coach. So thank you.
Fun for me.
All right. I'll let you go, and look forward to catching up with you later.
Thanks, Doc.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have 2 more shows that are coming up. They are both talking heads. One is featuring Jean Keegan-Daly, and the other is Mariska Duprier. If you would like to be considered to be a talking head, please do reach out to me. You can go to either one of my websites, usaglobaltv.com or drjacqueline.com. You must have at least 5 years of experience. You must be an expert presenter, have a large following, and be a leader of your hearts. So that's what we look for here. And thank you again for joining us, whether it's on the live or if it's on the replay. We really do appreciate it. And we do have a comment from Frank Viola. Hi, Frank. A great presentation with so many gems to take with you. The biggest one for me is the concept of brand is behavior. Yes, absolutely. I wish Al was still here to see it, but I'll let him know. Thank you again for watching, Frank. And thanks to each and every one of you who support our platform and spread the word and tell other people about us. We're here. We have 20 live shows a week. If you'd like to be a guest, you can go over to our website, usaglobaltv.com, and you can go ahead and book your session there. Thanks so much. We'll see you in about an hour.